lavish restaurant sparkled like a jewel in the heart of Beverly Hills. Its crystal chandeliers poured golden light across polished marble floors, while the hum of soft jazz danced above murmured conversations and the clink of fine cutlery. It was the kind of place where appearances weren't just appreciated, they were required. And then, without ceremony or fanfare, he walked in. Johnny Depp stepped through the ornate double doors, wearing a simple, wrinkled shirt and time-worn boots that whispered stories of old roads. He didn't strut. He didn't scan the room. He simply moved with the grace of someone who had nothing to prove. To those who knew who he was, it might have seemed like a test. To those who didn't, it looked like a mistake. Ashley, the senior waitress on duty, spotted him from across the room. Her instinct for social radar had never failed her. This man in jeans and soft-spoken presence did not belong in her section. Or any section, really. Her eyes narrowed just slightly like a cat assessing a trespasser. Before Johnny could even glance at the menu, she materialized beside his table. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she said, her voice a scalpel cloaked in velvet. The question didn't echo, but it landed, sharp, unmistakable, and meant to draw blood. Johnny looked up at her, unshaken. His eyes, pools of quiet knowing, didn't flinch. "Yes," he said softly. "This is exactly where I want to be." Ashley wasn't just a waitress. She was the gatekeeper of illusion. At Lavish, prestige wasn't served on the plate alone. It came layered in glances, gestures, and who you were seen being seen with. Her uniform, crisp and tailored, mirrored the role she played, perfection. And tonight, that perfection was under siege. She didn't care who Johnny Depp was, or more truthfully, she didn't know. What she saw was a man out of sync with the delicate ecosystem of ego and elegance that lived inside Lavish. She'd worked too hard to allow its walls to be tarnished by anyone who couldn't match the wine list or pronounce the amuse-bouche. As she guided Johnny to a far, dim corner near the swinging kitchen doors, the air thickened with her silent disapproval. Her heels clicked like judgment against marble. She didn't look back to see if he followed, because she already knew people like him always followed. "There," she said sweetly, falsely, "a table just right for you." It was the seat where ambiance went to die. The clang of pots echoed too loud. The smell of truffle oil mixed with dish soap. The shadows swallowed all charm. Yet Johnny sat like it was a throne of his own choosing. "Thank you," he replied. He didn't resist, and that unnerved her. Ashley hovered like a hawk, pretending to be a host. With theatrical flourish, she dropped the menu in front of Johnny and offered a smirk that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, the filet de Rossini," she said when he pointed to the dish without hesitation. "An excellent choice. Of course, it's $350, just making sure there's no confusion." She expected a blink, a flinch, maybe even a panicked retreat. Instead, Johnny simply nodded. "Yes," he said. "It sounds perfect." Ashley's spine stiffened. This wasn't how the story usually went. She tried again, layering on condescension like perfume. "Well then," she said, eyes glinting, "just know, our chef prefers it be enjoyed by those who truly appreciate fine dining." Her implication was a slap wrapped in silk. Johnny's response, a polite, measured smile. "Then I'm sure it will be memorable." Ashley scribbled the order with unnecessary vigor. "And don't forget," she added, barely able to hide her grin, "our minimum tip here is 20%. But Johnny didn't even blink. It was as if her barbs fell soundlessly into the golden air between them. As Ashley turned on her heel, triumphant in tone but not in spirit, Johnny exhaled slowly and began reading the menu again, not in doubt, but in quiet observation. The pianist played on. The lights shimmered, and Johnny remained an unmoving pillar of calm in a sea of posturing. Ashley returned with the appetizer, her steps stiff with silent irritation. She didn't place the plate down. She dropped it. The fine china slid an inch across the tablecloth with an audible scrape. "Your appetizer," she said brightly, her tone polished with passive aggression. "I hope you enjoy it, if you know what you're eating." Johnny looked at the dish, a delicate fusion of flavors and textures, and smiled faintly. "It looks excellent," he said. "Thank you." Ashley leaned in, voice just above a whisper. "Most guests don't really enjoy this one, bit too sophisticated, but maybe you'll surprise me. It was bait. But Johnny didn't bite. He met her eyes, calm, unthreatened, almost kind. Thank you for the warning. I'll take my chances. That response, it wasn't just unaffected. It was elegant, and it made her flinch internally, though her face stayed carved in marble. From across the restaurant, glances began to stir. A few nearby diners had noticed the dynamic. A silver-haired gentleman near the window raised his glass silently toward Johnny, a silent acknowledgement. Johnny returned the gesture with the barest nod. Ashley saw it, and it unnerved her more than she'd admit. Her illusion of control was beginning to crack. Ashley made a calculated decision. She would delay his order. She let Johnny's plate sit under the warming lamp while she entertained tables she deemed more deserving. She poured vintage wine for a finance tycoon, laughed at the limp joke of a reality star, and took selfies with a couple she'd once seen on the arm of a B-list celebrity. All the while, Johnny sat at his table, unmoved, unbothered, waiting. He didn't check his watch, he didn't signal for attention, he simply existed, calm and observant, like a painter watching the canvas take form. Ashley passed by his table several times, feigning haste. Each time their eyes met, he offered her the same composed smile. No sarcasm, no impatience, just an unnerving stillness. It was beginning to eat at her. Nearby, the same silver-haired gentleman rose from his table. He walked over with the air of a man who had lived long enough to value grace over glamour. "Evening," he said warmly. "I hope I'm not intruding." Johnny smiled. "Not at all. It's good to meet someone who appreciates silence." The old man chuckled. "That silence says a lot about you. Most people would have caused a scene by now." Ashley reappeared abruptly, her voice honeyed but firm. "Sir, can I help you with something? We prefer our guests enjoy their meals without interruption." The gentleman narrowed his eyes, not rudely, but with unmistakable challenge. "I was just speaking to a man who seems to have more dignity in silence than most have in a shout." Ashley's lips thinned. "Well, perhaps you should return to your table." He did, but not before patting Johnny on the shoulder gently. "You're doing just fine." Ashley stood frozen, feeling the spotlight begin to shift. For the first time all night, she realized something that chilled her more than any mistake. People were watching. Eventually, Ashley returned from the kitchen, balancing Johnny's plate with forced indifference. The dish had cooled slightly under the warming lamp, an intentional delay. She dropped it onto the table with just enough force to make it clear. This wasn't about service. This was about control. "Here's your entry," she said with a syrupy sneer. "Hopefully, it's not too refined for your plate." Johnny looked at the plate, then up at her. "It looks wonderful. Please thank the chef." Ashley leaned in, voice lowered. "Are you sure? I mean, it's not the kind of thing someone in flannel usually orders." Johnny met her eyes. His voice was soft, but it rang like a bell in the growing quiet. "I'm sure, but thank you for your concern." Ashley turned sharply, heels slicing the floor. At the bar, she ranted to a colleague who had heard it all before. "He's pretending. I guarantee he has no clue what he's eating. I give it 5 minutes before he asks for ketchup." But her colleague didn't laugh. Instead, he said quietly, "Maybe he just wants dinner, Ash, and maybe he deserves it." Ashley stared at him, stunned. At a nearby table, a woman whispered to her partner, "She's treating him like garbage. It's cruel. He's been nothing but respectful." The man murmured, "It's disgusting." Johnny, meanwhile, continued his meal with slow, appreciative grace. He was savoring, not just the food, but the moment. Across the room, people who had initially ignored him were now watching him with curiosity and respect. He'd said nothing unkind, done nothing disruptive, and somehow that was his greatest weapon. Ashley cleared the table with robotic motions, still clinging to the unraveling story in her mind. She leaned in, voice low, sharp with sarcasm. "So, how was the dish? Meet your expectations?" Johnny looked up, serene as ever. "It was excellent. Please send my compliments to the chef." Again, no frustration, no complaint, just kindness. Ashley clenched her teeth. She needed to win this. She needed something to break through the fog of calm he surrounded himself with. So she raised her voice, just a little, enough for nearby tables to catch the words. You know, it's hard maintaining standards when anyone can just walk in and expect first-class treatment. Her eyes flicked toward Johnny, loud enough now that Forks paused midair. That's why we have a reservation system, she added with smug finality, to avoid situations like this. The air shifted. Conversations died in their throats. A hush fell like velvet across the dining room. Even the pianist slowed his melody. And then, like a scene cued from a film, the restaurant manager appeared. A tall man in a crisp suit, scanning the room with the practiced eye of someone who sensed fire before it sparked. The moment he saw Johnny, his entire body stiffened. He rushed forward. "Mr. Depp," he said breathlessly, "I wasn't informed you'd be joining us tonight." The blood drained from Ashley's face. Her jaw slackened. Her grip on the empty wine glasses faltered. "Mr. Depp," she whispered, blinking as if waking from a dream. The manager turned toward her, steel in his voice. "You knew who he was, didn't you?" Ashley stammered. I didn't know. He didn't say." The manager cut her off with a cold finality. "You treated him like he didn't matter, and that's the worst kind of mistake." Johnny finally spoke, voice low but unmistakably powerful. "No one should have to say who they are," he said. "Dignity should never be a luxury." And in that sentence, the entire restaurant shifted. Ashley stood frozen, her confidence gone, her pride crumbling beneath the weight of realization. The manager's eyes bore into her, not with anger, but disappointment, the kind that cuts deeper. Johnny remained seated, his presence now impossible to ignore. Patrons who had once dismissed him now regarded him with reverence. Some even looked guilty, as though they too had passed silent judgment. And yet, there was no triumph on Johnny's face, only stillness, only grace. The manager turned to him, humbly bowing his head. "Mr. Depp, please accept our deepest apologies. I assure you, this is not how we conduct ourselves." Johnny rose slowly, brushing the creases from his worn shirt, and faced the staff that had gathered nearby. Servers, hostesses, kitchen staff, all watching, breath held. "I'm not looking for an apology," he said gently, "but I would like a conversation. After hours, with the whole team." The manager nodded immediately, understanding. "Of course, we'll stay." Ashley opened her mouth, desperate to claw back some piece of control. "I didn't mean to, I thought." Johnny turned to her, not cruelly, but clearly. "Exactly," he said. "You thought, you assumed, based on how I looked, based on how I didn't announce myself." He paused, and in that pause, Ashley saw herself through his eyes, and it shattered her. "This isn't just about me," he continued, addressing the room now. "It's about the next person who walks in, without status, without wealth, without fame, and whether they'll be treated like they matter." There was nothing left for Ashley to say, nothing she could say that wouldn't echo with shame. The restaurant was empty now, chairs stacked, lights dimmed, and the echo of clinking glasses long faded. Staff stood in a semicircle, uniforms loosened, tension visible in their postures. In the center of the room, Johnny stood, not as a celebrity, not as a guest, but as a mirror. "We all make mistakes," he began, his voice low and deliberate. "But what matters is what we choose to do after." His words hung in the air like incense, slow burning, penetrating. What happened tonight wasn't about food. It wasn't about service. It was about assumptions, about letting pride become policy, about forgetting that behind every face is a story you do not know. His gaze moved from one staff member to the next. Some couldn't meet his eyes. Some had tears. "Ashley," he said softly. She flinched visibly. Her shoulders drew in. "I know tonight didn't go the way it should have," he said, "but I believe people can change if they choose to." Ashley's voice trembled. "I was wrong. I lost perspective. I thought protecting this place meant guarding it from people who didn't fit some image in my head." She paused, choking on her guilt. "But I forgot that kindness is the standard, and everyone who walks through those doors should feel seen. I'm sorry." Johnny gave a small, forgiving nod. "That apology isn't for me. It's for you, for who you'll become next." Then he turned to the group once more. "The world out there is already full of judgment. This place, lavish, can be more than a mirror of that world. It can be better." He stepped back, his voice gentle. almost like a lullaby now. Kindness is free. Dignity costs nothing, but the impact, that lasts forever. The manager stepped forward, eyes glassy. "Mr. Depp, thank you. We won't forget this." Johnny just smiled. And in that moment, Lavish changed. Not because of scandal, not because of punishment, but because someone chose grace over power. The doors of Lavish whispered closed behind him. Outside, Beverly Hills gleamed, storefronts casting neon reflections on the glossy pavement, the quiet hum of late-night cars passing like thoughts. Johnny paused beneath the golden glow of a street lamp, hands in his pockets, face soft in the silence. The night air was still, but it carried the weight of something important, something done, something learned. He glanced back once, his gaze resting on the restaurant's elegant facade. The building stood as it always had, grand, glittering, proud. But tonight, something inside had shifted. Tonight, a space built to celebrate status had been reminded of its soul. As Johnny turned to walk away, his steps were unhurried, deliberate. He wasn't just leaving a restaurant. He was leaving behind a message, a whisper for anyone who had ever felt small, invisible, out of place. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful statement isn't made with volume, but with stillness. A truth that kindness extended in moments when it's least expected can echo louder than cruelty ever will. That dignity, offered to strangers, can transform not just their evening, but their lives. And that character, real character, reveals itself not in what you own, but in how you treat someone who has nothing to give you. As the city lights shimmered on his path, Johnny Depp vanished into the night. But his story, this quiet revolution of grace and humanity, remained. In a world obsessed with image, he had reminded a room full of watchers that worth doesn't wear a label. And somewhere inside Lavish, someone new would be seated tomorrow, wearing worn shoes maybe, speaking gently, unannounced, and they would be treated with the respect they deserved, because someone had changed the story.